your YouTube channel ENC Edumate once again. Last time we had an introduction of the second unit, Words and Deeds, and we had come to know something about the writer of the essay "And Then Gandhi Came," Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru wrote, or he writes, about the timely arrival of Gandhiji to Indian politics. When the country was in dire need, means very much in need of such a leadership, Gandhiji was like a beam of light that removed the darkness. Jawaharlal Nehru makes a right assessment or calculation of Gandhiji in his discovery of India. Please try to understand. The essay is mainly giving an atmosphere of gloom and despair. That means complete darkness is there. And Indians were in search of a leader to guide them and to liberate them. All the frustrations, despair, unemployment, poverty caused by the First World War. Remember, the World War first started in 1914, 1914, and ended in 1918, 1918. And actually, Jawaharlal Nehru makes a right assessment of the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, in his famous book, Discovery of India. So the first paragraph is talking about the unpleasant condition which is prevalent in India after the First World War. Remember the year of the First World War beginning and the year of the First World War ending. That is 1914 started and 1918 ended. So this will give you more affinity towards about the First World War. The first paragraph of the essay begins with World War first ended at last, and the peace, instead of bringing us relief and progress, brought us repressive legislation and martial law in the Punjab. So if the war ended means there should be peace. But instead of bringing relief and progress to the Indians, brought us a very suppressive, repressive legislation and martial law in Punjab. A bitter, not very favorable sense of humiliation. All the Indians were undergoing a feeling of humiliation. So people were treated very badly, and a passionate anger is another feeling, filled the people of India. And Indians, we had become a derelict nation. Derelict means not cared for. You have studied the meaning of the word derelict in glossary section. And India after the World War first became an unwanted, not properly cared nation. Yet, what could we do? What can we do? How to change this vicious process? Vicious process means a very bad condition of India. We seem to be helpless. Indians after the end of the First World War became very senseless in the grip of some all-powerful monster monster. Monster is a wild animal which gives horror to all the people around. And look at, our limbs were paralyzed, helpless, they cannot move. Our minds deadened. All the Indians' minds were totally deadened. And a large number of people cut off from the land. They were not connected to their own native land. And they were incapable of any kind of manual or technical work. That means unemployment. After the First World War, all the Indians were mainly cut off from their own land, and they were not incapable of doing any kind of manual or technical work. And when there were no ways to have work and earnings, they joined the swelling army of the unemployed. Even the soldiers in the army were completely unemployed, and these unemployed people were also trying to join the brimming, swelling, or large number of unemployed soldiers of the army. And they were helpless. They were hopeless. Think about the condition of actually the Indians after the end of the First World War, and sank ever deeper into the morass. Very critical and pathetic situation. They did not know where to look, for neither the old or the new system offered them any hope. They were hopeless and helpless. New or the old system did not give any kind of relief or any kind of happiness to them. The second part of the essay begins with a question. What could we do? How could we pull India out of this dangerous quagmire of poverty and defeatism? Quagmire means a very difficult and dangerous situation of poverty and defeatism. Not for a few years of excitement and agony and suspense, but for long generations, our people had suffered. The people had offered their blood and toil. You see, they were fighting for the liberation of India. Most of the people offered their blood and toil, means they were ready to sacrifice and work hard for. And their tears and sweat, that means they were struggling too much and were suffering. Out of suffering came tears, and they were sweating. And this process of offering blood and toil, offering tears and sweat, and this process had eaten its way deep into the body and soul of India. So is completely decreasing the spirit of the body and soul of India and poisoning every aspect of Indians' life. Now, after the end of the First World War, the condition of India is similar to hell. People were helpless and hopeless. They were undergoing a quagmire of poverty and defeatism. And the process of this process, that means Indians offering their blood and toil, tears and sweat, this process had eaten its way deep into the body and soul of India. So very pathetic situation. So Indians were looking for a better leader and leadership. And then Gandhi came. At this moment, there came the arrival of Gandhiji. Look at the description of Gandhiji. He was like a powerful current of fresh air. Like a powerful current of like a powerful current of fresh air. Current of fresh air. Like, it is a simile. Gandhiji was like a powerful current of fresh air. Powerful current of fresh air. Simile. That made us sketch ourselves and take deep breaths. Indians were a little bit made some relief out of the arrival of and he was like a beam of light, another simile, like a beam of light that pierced the darkness and removed the scales from our eyes. Actually, it was like a beam of light that went very strongly into the darkness and removed the darkness of the eyes of the Indians. Again, the third simile, like a whirlwind, strong whirlwind that upset many things. So Gandhiji was like a whirlwind or a hurricane that upset many things. Hurricane means a strong wind which causes much destruction. But most of all, the working of the people's mind. So there came a psychological change in the minds of the Indians with the arrival of, or the timely arrival of Gandhiji. He did not descend from the top. Think that it was not a miracle that the arrival of Gandhiji in the Indian politics. That is what the writer Jawaharlal Nehru is. He did not descend from the top, means from the heaven. He seemed to emerge from the millions of India. He is one among the millions of Indians, speaking their language, speaking the language of the Indians, speaking their language. Now the next paragraph starts with, get off the backs of these peasants and workers. He told us, all of you who live by their exploitation, get rid of them. That produces his poverty and misery. He told numerous peasants and workers, farmers, and he told us, all of you who live by their exploitation, get rid of such exploitation that produces this poverty and misery. Actually, Indians were mostly exploited, and he asked them to get rid of that exploitation from your mind, and that exploitation produces this poverty and misery. Now he is talking about political freedom. So political freedom took a new shape then and acquired a new content, new satisfaction or new matter of things. Much that he said we only partially accepted or sometimes did not accept at all. You see, when Gandhiji addressed the people talking about to get rid of the exploitation which produces poverty for them, and also political freedom took a new shape then and acquired a new content or satisfaction. And whatever Gandhiji said, Indians only partially accepted, or sometimes they rejected what Gandhiji said. But all this was secondary. Whatever Gandhiji said was a secondary thing. And the essence of Gandhiji's teaching was fearlessness. Don't be afraid of anything. And to hold on truth, fearlessness and truth. And action allied to these two ideals always keeping the welfare of the masses in view. You see, fearlessness and truth. Always keeping the welfare of the masses in view. The greatest gift for an individual or a nation. So we had been told in our ancient books was Abhaya. So ancient books onwards we were told that Abhaya means fearlessness. Not merely body courage. So actually fearlessness or Abhaya doesn't mean that merely bodily courage, but dominant, but the absence of fear from the mind. You see, Abhaya means it is not the bodily courage, okay, but the absence of fear from the mind. The dominant, the prominent, the very significant impulse in India under British rule was that of fear. You see, all the Indians were caught under the fear. Perversive, what type of perversive fear? Oppressing fear and strangling fear. You see, different types of the fear. That is why Gandhiji first told Indians, fearlessness. Don't be afraid of. And also courage, he told. What type of fears he is describing is, one is perversive fear and oppressing fear. Fear, strangling fear is a fear of death. And the fear of the army, fear of the police, and the widespread secret service, the fear of that one. That means people are doing some secret services. The fear of secret service, the fear of the official class, fear of laws meant to suppress, means make people not to talk anything about suppress. And the fear of prison, people who were violating the law and order will be imprisoned, put it into jail. Fear of the landlords, agent of the landlords, their fear. And fear of the money lenders, people who lent money for the exorbitant taxes, money lenders' fear. And the fear of unemployment, the condition of not having any jobs. And the fear of starvation. Starvation means the condition where there is no sufficient food to eat, which were always on the threshold, on the doorstep of each Indian. That is, so these are the numerous fears that Gandhiji is mainly discussing about this. Fear of the money lenders, fear of unemployment and starvation, which were always on the threshold, on the doorstep of each and every Indian. It was against this all-pervading fear that Gandhiji's quiet and determined voice was raised. Actually, Gandhiji spoke very bravely and loudly towards Indians to avoid this kind of fears. Be not afraid. Was it so simple as all that? It is not very simple to avoid all these various types of fears. Not quite, not complete. And yet, fear builds its phantoms, which are more fearsome. Phantoms means which are so mysterious and frightening, which are more fearsome than reality itself. These kind of fears are accumulated just like phantoms, which are more fearsome than reality itself. And reality, when calmly analyzed, and its consequences, its results, willingly accepted, loses much of its terror. Finally, when we do all these kinds of analysis and the results of which willingly accepted, loses much of the intensity of the terror or fear. The next paragraph. So suddenly as it were, that the black pall of fear was lifted from the people's shoulders. Not wholly, of course. Of course, the gravity or the intensity of the fear to some extent was lifted from the shoulders of Indians, but not fully, of course. But to an amazing degree has gone out from the shoulders of the Indians. As a fear is close companion to falsehood. Fear, close companion, close friend, companion to falsehood. That is a very important thing. Why you are afraid? Because you may be having some connection with the falsehood. So truth follows fearlessness. Falsehood opposite is truth. When you are true to yourself or true to your consciousness, you are fearlessness. There is no room for fear. The Indian people did not become much more truthful than they were. You see, that is another thing Gandhiji said. So Jawaharlal Nehru is trying to highlight this idea through the speech. The Indian people did not become much more truthful than they were. Actually, Indians were they were very truthful, but they did not become much more truthful than they were. Really, they were truthful, but they did not become much more truthful. Nor did they change. Nor did they change their essential nature overnight. No. By overnight, they cannot change their essential or inborn nature. Nevertheless, a sea change was visible as the need for falsehood and furtive behavior lessened. You see, two things were lessened. Lessened means made very low. What became visible? A sea change. A great change was visible as the need for falsehood and furtive behavior, very rude behavior lessens. So this through which he is trying to highlight a psychological change, almost as if some expert in psychoanalytical methods had probed deep into the patient's past, found out the origins of his complexes, expressed them to his view, and thus rid him of that burden. You see, a psychological change is gradually taking place in the mind of all the Indians. Patience, probed deep into the patient's past. Patience is actually the situation where we have to be patient. Found out the origins of his complexes. And there are so many complexes like inferiority complexes. Exposed them to his view. So he tries to, each and every Indian tries to analyze or to pinpoint his own view, and thus made him free from his burdens of fear from different realms and humiliation, unemployment, poverty, starvation. The next stanza, there was the psychological reaction, psychological change as well as psychological reaction also has taken place. A feeling of shame at our long submission. You see, a feeling of shame. Why shame came? All the Indians were just submissive to an alien rule. They were submitted to a foreign rule, British colonial rule that had degraded, actually a rule that had degraded to some extent and humiliated the Indians. All the Indians were completely ashamed of giving submission to the foreign rule, and a desire to submit no longer. Finally, they told we were living in a very shameful life by giving our submission to a foreign rule. Now there had come a desire not to submit no longer. We will never be submissive to a foreign rule, and a desire to submit no longer. Whatever the consequences may be, even if they don't submit themselves to foreign rule, there would be so many rigorous consequences or result, just like arrest, imprisoned, unemployment, poverty. We did not grow much more truthful, perhaps, than we had been previously. But what is actually is having, but is a word which shows a kind of negative attitude. Gandhi was always there as a symbol of uncompromising truth to pull us up and shame us into truth. You see, that is a very important. Gandhi was always there with the Indians as a symbol or as a model. What is a model of Gandhiji? Uncompromising truth. There is no expectation of compromise from the part of Gandhiji, especially concerning to truth. With that uncompromising truth, to pull all the Indians up from the darkness of India's condition and shame us into truth, finally making the Indians to hold upon to the concept of truth and to make the people to be ashamed that they were submissive and they were undergoing a kind of humiliation and were just propagating the concept of untruth. That is what here. So the next paragraph is starting with what is truth? So if I ask you the question what is truth, you may have your own different opinion or substantiation about the truth. So here Gandhiji is asking what is truth? Then Gandhiji itself is also telling, I don't know for certain. I don't know surely what is truth. And perhaps our truths are relative. So many of the Indians who are just talking about their concept of truth and their definition of truth are relative, are relatively connected. And absolute truth is beyond us. Gandhiji says that what is an absolute, what is an infinite truth, that is beyond our thinking and imagination. Different persons may or do take different views of truth. As I have told you, if you ask 100 people about what is truth, then they will give different views of truth. And different persons may and do take different views of truth. And each individual is powerfully influenced by his own background. You see, when you ask a person about truth, his definition of the truth will be completely influenced by his own background. Whether he is coming from an educated background, poor background, or rich background. And his view or definition will be influenced by his training and his impulses, mental reflections. Impulses means mental reflections. So also Gandhi had his own definition of truth influenced by his own background, his own training, and his own impulses. But truth is, again Gandhiji tries to ascertain, truth is, at least for an individual, person, what he himself feels, an individual person, or what he himself feels and knows to be true. According to this definition, I don't know of any person who holds to the truth as Gandhi does. Yes, as Gandhi, this is not at all quite clear that. I do not know of any person who holds to the truth as Gandhi does. The writer Jawaharlal Nehru is mainly highlighting this one. That is dangerous quality. You see, if you are 100% stick upon to the real truth, that is actually dangerous quality. A person who is 100% stick upon to real truth, that is dangerous quality, especially in a politician. For he speaks out his mind. Actually, a person who is very truthful doesn't have any kind of hidden things. He speaks out his mind and even permits the public, means the common people, see its changing faces and changing realms. So I hope that this is actually the time for winding up this session. Read the textbook 4 or 5 times and just to watch the class repeatedly and try to understand each and every paragraph of this essay. And for the time being, I would like to wind up this session and hope you have benefited this. Let us continue the rest of the essay in the next class. Thank you.